Now you speak about Paul Kagame, who's currently worshipped as an example of a great African leader doing great things for Africa. Is that not the case?
That is absolutely the case. Kagame is actually one of Africa's biggest problems, because Congo is the biggest dissettlement of Africa that causes Africa never to unite. And Kagame is the reason why we've got the Congolese struggle. The
DRC, my basic understanding is that it's the wealthiest country
in Africa,
on the continent, from a mineral perspective.
In the world, yeah.
It's the wealthiest country in the world from a natural resources perspective.
100%.
And you're saying Paul Kagame has a part to play in that?
Yeah, people don't understand that we always hear about the Rwandan genocide. The Rwandan genocide was started by Paul Kagame. And he started the Rwandan genocide because he wanted to take power by force in a country that would have never elected him into power, because he came from the minority Tutsis who used to be supported by the colonizer and used to be the administrators on behalf of the colonizer. So for Paul Kagame to come back as a Tutsi to come and take power in Rwanda, he needed to do something. And what he did is he started the genocide. He started the genocide by bringing down a plane that had two presidents, Hutu presidents, the Burundian president and the Rwandan president. Paul Kagame and his RFP forces shot down the plane when it was landing back in Rwanda from actually an AU meeting. And when that plane came down, then it inflamed the Hutu people who knew that they were RFP fighters who were trying to take power by force. And so they began to fight against Tutsi people who they felt wanted to come and take over power. While they were doing that, Paul Kagame himself sent his forces to murder his own Tutsi people on a whole-scale level to make it look like a genocide, so that he could then have his forces come into Rwanda and take over power militarily under the guise of stopping a genocide against Tutsis. Sanctions are a violation of human rights. According to the Geneva Convention, even in wartime, a nation cannot impose sanctions that collectively punish, disproportionately punish, and indiscriminately punish civilians. So when we're fighting sanctions, we're fighting for the human rights of Zimbabweans to be able to have freedom of development so that they can be able to have the basics: food, water, healthcare, jobs, and an economy that functions. We're also asking for Zimbabwe to have the right to trade internationally without hindrance. So the problem with sanctions is that they don't stop us from trading with the West only. The West actually put in secondary sanctions that punish anybody else from other countries or third parties that does business with Zimbabwe and then wants to do business with the West.
Jeez.
So for instance, when your banks right now are being pushed to block certain Zimbabweans from having bank accounts in South Africa, and those banks are blocking Zimbabweans from having bank accounts from South Africa without trying those people, all because the United States said that they must do it because those banks are afraid to be removed from the international banking system. They're afraid to have their payments of South Africa being blocked when they're sent through to SWIFT and other international banks. They're scared to have their relationships or corresponding banking relationships with other banks blocked. So that over compliance to sanctions, that third-party imposition of sanctions or implementation of sanctions is what we're fighting for when we say sanctions must be removed.
Sure.
Because they stop us even from trading with South Africa. That has got nothing to do with the sanctions on Zimbabwe. However, it has been proved that the banks that are doing these things are doing it when they have no cause to do it.
Sure.
South Africa is going to need Zimbabweans. Tlanjalax has got to understand that. South Africa's biggest threat is not Zimbabweans. It is the grip that white people continue to have on this economy that is almost going to make it suicidal for you guys to want to empower yourself. For instance, the seeds of this country don't belong to South Africa. They belong to Western countries. The day you want to take land, they're going to take away their seeds. Syngenta, Monsanto, and Bayer will hold their seeds. There'll be starvation instantaneously in South Africa. When that day comes, South Africa will need seeds from other countries. A lot of the land in South Africa is not going to be usable because it's used to fertilizers and chemicals. For that land to be usable, you're going to need organic fertilizers. You're going to need them from the rest of Africa. When the economic system crashes here and payments are blocked in South Africa, and you're under sanctions like Zimbabwe and banks don't want to do business in South Africa, you're going to need a Zimbabwean banking system that works, a SADC banking system that works. You're going to need a united SADC that is going to prop up South Africa, prop up South Africa's goods, allow South Africa to pay for medical equipment and tools and so forth. For that to happen when that day comes, and I suspect it'll come soon, because you've got an ANC that needs to revolutionarily change something, otherwise you're going into a coalition government. That ANC cannot afford to go into a coalition government with whites who are going to arrest every single black South African millionaire who's politically exposed. So those people within the ANC who are going to be targeted by a coalition of whites and Herman Mashaba are going to have to make sure that they stay in power. How will they stay in power? How will they get people to vote for them? They've got to take land. They've got to economically transform this economy. They've got to take mines. They've got to change the constitution.